Please.
Yeah, I think people have benefited. That of course this class is vocal, and why not? But things have, as I said, FDI reforms. In jobs coming in, investments, all of them directly infrastructure. You said biggest beneficiary of infrastructure. A lot of poor people will say, what do I do with infrastructure?
Right.
The biggest beneficiary of infrastructure is this class, which is upper middle, let's say.
Right.
So their lives have improved.
Right.
Of course, they taxes, for instance.
Right.
Taxes, you have to, anywhere in the world you have this much of tax.
Right.
Other than Middle East where they work on oil.
Right.
I don't think generally taxes are exorbitant. There are items where they are exorbitant.
Right.
So I think things can improve. As I've said, they are leading a decent, comfortable life.
I think with taxation, sir, probably the rate of taxation is not that big a problem, but the complication of the code, how complex the entire system is.
Yes.
And I grew up pretty much on the Income Tax Act because that's the dominant discussion in my family, right?
Yeah.
So I understand it very well, and I'm trained to be a company secretary. I never finished my chartered accountant, so I know.
Yeah.
And I think that complication of the tax code is such a burden, not just on the individual, but on the institution, the government as well, because it produces so many ways for me to move around.
Sure.
I feel like every financial, the budget, every year we spend 25% of our budget resources in solving the problems we created last year with the tax code, right? And I think that might be...
No, that is why government size, right? Government size matters. Now, if you keep a large government size, if you keep a budget of 48 lakh crore, next year you will see in the budget, the finance minister proudly saying we have crossed 50 lakh crore and all. I think it's not I remember Pranab Mukherjee saying 10 lakh crore we have reached in 2011 or something when he was presenting the budget. Now, the problem is if you have a large budget, you have targets. You give taxmen the target. Once you give taxmen the target, you will have these, you need to create all these complications where they can interpret the way they want and go behind the taxpayer.
Right.
In a simple thing, you won't be able to do this. So the solution is you have to prioritize. See, you can't do, it's easy to as an economist to talk about these things. I know it's very hard for a policymaker because we can say spend political capital, which means you lose the election.
Yeah, right.
A very sophisticated way of saying is political capital. What do you mean?
Career.
That's
what it means, yes.
Who will do? Will I do? Will you do?
Right.
It's a difficult thing to do. But then if you don't do it long term, it will hurt, even politically also. So the problem with why they cannot do simpler taxation is if you keep your budget targets very high, then you have to collect. And you need these complicated laws if you have to collect. So that is why it's a chicken and egg problem. You have to prioritize, I'm not going to spend this much, even in infrastructure. Not every infrastructure is productive. I've said it many places. There is no careful research, which, there is no consensus on whether infrastructure has so much multiplier as it is claimed. A metro in a city is definitely productive. 100%.
Yes.
It will solve a problem and you can see it, right? Whereas in an airport in a village is not. I come from Karnataka. We used to have 2 airports, Bangalore and Mangalore, for a very long time. I think even today the need is only for these 2. But now we have, I think, 8 or 10 airports. Every district has an airport. Now, there's one flight going from there. Now, you can argue that 50 years from now, there will be investment coming. But you're deploying resources for... People don't realize this. When government spends, they have taxed it from some Prakhar. Now, that has created a deadweight loss. The taxation is a deadweight loss because your production with taxation, your production without taxation is different. See, any business, there is a price and there is a cost.
Right.
You stop where the price is equal to cost.
Right.
What tax does, it increases your cost. That means you will stop much earlier than what you would have stopped. So your revenue
is
a falling
cost.
function.
Right,
As you increase product, your revenue falls. Your cost goes up. And now without taxation, you will go even more. With taxation, you will stop here. There is this triangle that you would have seen. Cost. So when a finance minister collects money, we have these people celebrating GST beyond a point. You don't realize that you collect more of those, you're causing deadweight cost to the economy. Private sector's production, you're reducing. Now when you spend, you better make sure that additional spending you're doing is more than this deadweight cost. Then it makes sense.
Right.
Metro, I can see. Surely it's more than that. I can see very clearly.
100%.
I don't, I have no problem with that. Expanding Delhi airport, I can see. 100%. There is capacity constraint. But an airport in a village, Vande Bharat, I don't see. Vande Bharat between my village, I'm from Udupi, to Goa, which is 4.5 hours, and you charge like 2,000, 3,000 rupees. I can drive down. The road is very good. I don't see it as a solving any problem. Infrastructure that solves a problem is very, very good. Infrastructure which does not. So I see a lot of these expenditure, which is not problem solving in nature. What they miss is, what people miss, which those who suggest the government also, where is this funding coming from? It's coming through taxes. Now that tax has already created a deadweight loss. Private sector's productivity to that extent has already gone down. Now if you don't generate equivalent, you are harming the economy.
Right. आपने net loss create किया.
हाँ, तो इसके बारे में सोचते ही नहीं. जो 1 रुपए आप ले रहे हो, see 1 रुपए का ना, see I think I have to say this carefully to your viewers. If I take 1 rupee from you, if it comes to 1 rupee for me, as an economist, no, we don't care. We don't, as a ruthless people, if I say that we don't care, of course, some of us do care, but we're not worried so much about, we don't call it a social loss. आपसे मैंने 1 रुपए लिया, मुझे 1 रुपए मिला. Then there's no social loss, right? Distributionally, there is a problem. But tax में क्या होता है? When I take 1 rupee from you, I reduce your production also. That is a loss. अगर if I don't take that 1 rupee from you, you would produce
2.5 rupees
extra.
Right.
वो मैं ले लिया. Now I have to generate. I better generate that.
For the total economy.
Yeah, if I generate that, it's good.
Right.
In fact, in a metro, I may be generating 5.
Right.
That is good.
Yeah.
But in a airport in some remote area, I am not. If there is a strategic consideration, I get it. That's a different thing. Like you were mentioning, Leh Ladakh में चाहिए होगा.
Right.
I have no one to comment.
Right.
Then it's not just economic, but this is not. Some of the even infrastructure. What is happening is we should not go by percentage allocation. It should be bottom up. Are we solving a problem?
Right.
If you're solving a problem, करो expenditure. मतलब then I would say expand government. अगर आपके पास problem, if you can
identify the problem.
Identify a problem, do a thought experiment. खुद ही बात कर लो सरकार में कि ये problem है, इसको अगर इसमें हम 100 करोड़ डालेंगे तो 200 करोड़ का फायदा है. Then tax the hell out of people. I don't have a problem.
Because you're generally adding to the economics.
Generally adding to the economy. It'll come back.
Right.
But अगर आप इसलिए कर रहे हो कि कोई टारगेट है, कोई नंबर है, आई हैव टू मीट 4% ऑफ द बजट, कैपेक्स होना चाहिए, हमारा एनालिसिस बहुत लेजी हो चुका है. आप किसी इकोनॉमिस्ट को बुलाइए जो दे एडवाइज द गवर्नमेंट, फर्स्ट थिंग दे विल टेल यू क्वालिटी ऑफ एक्सपेंडिचर इज गॉन अप. एंड हाउ डू यू डिफाइन क्वालिटी ऑफ एक्सपेंडिचर? कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर गॉन अप. नाउ just because you label something as capital expenditure does not make it more productive.
Doesn't make it more qualitative.
Just because something is a social expenditure doesn't make it less productive. The saving of 70,000 lives, which Nature's article saying Swachh Bharat, you call it unproductive.
Because that's
their
not
accounting,
capex.
it's unproductive.
Right.
How is it unproductive?
Right.
The houses you're building, PM Awas, look, accounting is so bad. PM Awas is under welfare expenditure. You're building houses.
Which is infrastructure.
Right. Or not. So we have to be careful. That's my second grouse. Is that accounting way of looking at what is more productive or what is not productive, then a realistic problem solving way.
Right.
That is, these are solvable problems. I remain optimistic to go to 9-10%, because that was I've this is a problem calling a professor.
Right.
Your question started with something else. I went somewhere else.
That is what I enjoy about my job, sir.
But let me try to relate to the question. This is what I do when students ask question. I give whatever answer that I want, and finally I realize I'm talking something totally different than what the student has asked. Then the student will feel bad, so I have to tell the student that no, I am answering your question.
In which case, sir, professors fit brilliantly in podcasting, because we ask stupid questions and we expect very smart responses. So it works out.
So connecting to, if I have to relate it to what do we need to do for 9-10%, I can tell you 2 things. Of course, these are not the only 2 things. These are 2 things I understand. One thing that I understand very well is access to credit, improve access to credit, build credit infrastructure, promote cash flow based lending, have smaller lenders, not larger lenders, don't discourage NBFCs, encourage NBFCs. थोड़ा बहुत default होगा, होने दो. If they have to rescue, we have done far worse than before. We have seen all of that. That is one. The other side is scale down government, reduce government size. Don't have, your target should be government expenditure as a percentage of GDP, not debt, not fiscal deficit. It's a very clear, the only number in my view in the budget This year they said we will move from fiscal deficit. Fiscal deficit is,
Import,
you know
export.
it. Revenue minus expenditure.
Revenue minus expenditure.
Right? How much they spend and how much they earn of the government.
Yes.
Receipts minus expenditure.
Right,
Not
right, right.
necessarily revenue.
Right.
All kinds of receipts minus expenditure.
Theek.
Now that is government's target. This year they said, no, we will target debt. No, debt itself is not bad. As I've told you, if you have enough growth, why not?
Yeah.
Borrow debt.
Right.
The target should be that what is the role of government in the economy? Can you minimize it and focus on solving problems? Last 2-3 years post-COVID, COVID, it was the right thing to do. Again, we have to be careful. Same thing works well during
Crisis.
During COVID, crisis, government has to step in. And they will step in and fine. But post-COVID, that has remained. While they have reduced their focus. This is what Milton Friedman warned. These guys are, you should see a video, you should play this video. It's available on YouTube. That he said, Republicans have this problem. Republicans focus on deficits.
Right.
Deficit क्या है कि your spending is more than expenditure, तो more than income, तो इसको कम करना है. कैसे कम करोगे? So spending you can't reduce, then you collect more taxes. So if you collect more taxes, then your deadweight cost.
Yeah.
You're creating deadweight cost. Why can't reduce expenditure? The focus should be on reducing expenditure. So what has happened in the post-COVID, in the last 3 budgets, we have reduced fiscal deficit by increasing taxes. Increasing tax collection as a percent. See, I know people may say we have not increased tax rates. मुझे tax rate से कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. आप economy से कितना ले रहे हो? Come tax rate low, whatever. What matters for deadweight cost is how much you're sucking from the economy.
From the economy. So tax collection
is what
बढ़ गया
matters.
है. हाँ.
Tax collection बढ़ा है. Tax collection बढ़ा है. That means you have cost more deadweight cost to the economy.
Right.
Right. So now you better justify. Of course, if you can justify that all these projects where you're investing in are productive, I don't see some of them as productive. I see some of them as productive. Of course, suburban rail in Bangalore. Even in villages, good village road is good. It's necessary. School in a village is necessary. Health problems, you open a health clinic is necessary. But are all highways necessary? When already one highway is going on, just expand, stop and do. You also know many of those which have not solved any problem. Right? Maybe you can do it few years later. What people who appreciate it also don't realize it is coming at the expense of this deadweight loss. So we are we are increasing tax collection and claiming it as a victory because it reduces fiscal deficit. So I am okay. You have complete fiscal deficit. Only borrow, don't tax at all. But spend on productive purpose. Nothing wrong with that. Because productive by definition will generate. So we should come out of this, especially, median age is yours. People, country which median person is like you, should not be fearful of borrowing.
Right.
If it is for productive.
Right.
You should fear for borrowing if you borrow and eat.
Right.
That's
if you borrow and invest into a business, then you should not be
genuine good business.
Yeah, right.
So I think this approach should change in my view. They should go back to what they were doing in Modi 1. Solve problems, identify problems, go back to reforms. I think we will then go to 9%. Otherwise also I think they are a decent government. We will still do 7%. I tell in my class, the way we are in India, bad government will bring us to 4-5%. Decent government will keep us at 6-7%. We need a very good long-term oriented government to go to 9%. So they have the potential, I think they understand hopefully. And they should focus on solving problems.
Brother, ये questions और ये podcast सुन के आपके भी दिमाग के चक्षु खुले ना. So subscribe to this so that you can watch our podcast in small bits and clips while you are busy and, wasting your life away.